Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah Martin with The Contoured Chemist. All right guys, today we're gonna do a little troubleshooting. This was actually recommended from one of my amazing clients who survey when I asked you guys to fill out a survey to enter my, what was it, November giveaway. And one of them was how to fix mistakes. You guys probably know by now that I don't like the word mistakes when it comes to makeup. I feel like there are no mistakes with Seint's 3D foundation because it is so easy to fix anything you do. But there are some issues that we can easily avoid when you're learning application of this makeup for the first time. So this is going to be application-based mistakes of things you can do differently and how to fix things that might happen when you're in the application process. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you want to check it out, please keep watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for being here. All right, friends, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to do my full face, but I'm going to show you guys 5 mistakes and then how to fix it and how to avoid it for the next time, right? Because what are mistakes if it's not something to learn from? That is my motto. There's nothing wrong with mistakes as long as you experiment, you learn from it, and you grow. And we love to avoid them the next time, right? Okay. So number 1 is going to be, can anybody guess it? If you've been around here for a while, you probably know what the number 1 issue for anyone who tries 3D foundation is. Anybody guess? That would be over application. I'm telling you guys, do not feel bad if you put too much on the first time because everyone does it. I did it. I might have some clients who haven't because they've watched so many of my videos beforehand that they're like, I can't apply too much. Sarah says everyone applies too much. Sorry if I sound like a broken record. I do that so you can avoid this issue. But if you've ever finished your makeup and felt your face and felt sticky or tacky, you more than likely have applied too much. Or you look way too dark or way too warm. That can also be, and that's number 2, and we're gonna kind of build on top of the first one for that one. I'm gonna show you on this side what it looks like and what maybe most people are doing when it leads to over application. Not all, just some. Number 1 thing I see is swiping in the creams and swiping on the face. Do you see how opaque that goes on? Okay, so I'm just gonna act like, this is my color corrector, by the way. Oh my gosh, I'm going through like a whole 10. That's another hint. If you are going through an entire 10 of your creams in a couple of weeks, you're applying too much. Since I use a color corrector and a main shade, I'm telling you guys, I go through, it probably takes me 6 months to go through my highlight shades. I kid you not. That's how very little I use. So I'm just swiping this on all over. Okay, I will show you how to fix the side as we're moving on for the next one. First, I'm going to show you what I would do differently. Okay, the number 1 thing I recommend when you're learning application is knowing how to get your product on the brush. There's no need to swipe into these 10s and knowing what tool you choose is everything, okay? I can't tell you how many times people come to me that are using this brush or this brush and are having issues with over application. And that's because these brushes pick up far more product because they're denser. So when it comes to color correction, if I've color matched you to a color corrector, you gotta understand less is more. It's all about how much you use of each shade in order to get the perfect match for you, and at the same time correct those things that you wanted corrected, okay? So I'm gonna pick up, for the color corrector, I always recommend either the blush end of the blush bronzer or the blend brush, something that's going to allow you to keep a very light hand, okay? Key, light hand, okay? And if you aren't comfortable with the brush yet and you say want to kind of just place it, you can gently tap in with your finger, just so I'm not swiping, but just so you get some color in some areas, and then you can put it to the face, let it warm up a minute, and then go in with your brush and buff it, okay? So the key is a very thin layer. You will never feel sticky or tacky, and you won't have issues with looking too dark, looking too warm, creasing, blending, all of those things, okay? Because you are doing it in a very thin layer. When you finish your makeup, you shouldn't be able to feel it on your face. That's one of the reasons why I love these creams, is that they are weightless if applied properly. And if not, you're still a little too heavy-handed, okay? And it's, like I said, it's super common. It just takes a little practice, trial and error, okay? So what I always recommend is going in with your brush and just gently tapping, okay? Now you'll see I don't even have a whole lot of color in there. This will still last me probably months, you guys. That's how very little, okay? And you can see since it wasn't even, okay, I'm not getting it on the brush even, and that's fine because this step I'm buffing, okay? So this is what buffing looks like. We're just kind of placing it on the skin, and we're gently, small circles in order for it to kind of melt into the skin with the warmth of our face, and it's gonna just be kind of distributed in this nice thin layer. And since my face turns red as soon as I touch it, it's kind of hard to compare so far, but I promise it will once I'm done. This is also an issue if you're saying like, oh, my face just doesn't look like skin. It looks heavy, cakey. The only way this makeup can look cakey is if you've applied too much and then you've put a powder over it. Otherwise, these creams don't look cakey unless it is the wrong color. If it is too light, as you are trying to get coverage on anything, if you're building up a color too light, it'll eventually start looking dry and cakey. So all of these fixing application mistakes are all based on having the right shades, because there are a lot more troubleshooting issues we could go over that are all caused from the wrong color with this makeup. So anything too light is mainly the biggest issue. It will make your pores more visible, make your fine lines stand out more. It'll look dry. It won't blend right. It won't be giving coverage. Those are all things that can happen with the wrong highlight shade, okay? So if you're having any of those issues, longevity even, that is all a color issue. So I'm not gonna be going over those specifically. Just holler at me, I can fix that. I have a color match request in the drop box below the video, and I can tell you why the colors you have aren't working for you, or if it's just an application based on your picture. Okay, so hopefully you can tell the difference. You might not be able to yet. This was swiped on with the buff brush, which does pick up far more product. I swiped in and I swiped on. So, I mean, I probably feathered it a little bit because it's really hard for me to apply things way wrong. I don't want to say wrong, but not how I'd recommend. But if you're having streaking issues when you're applying, it's because you're swiping. Whatever brush these lend to swiping like I showed, I would recommend switching your brush, okay? The best way to apply a color corrector is by feathering or buffing with one of these two brushes to get the lightest hand, okay? You'll notice how much lighter this side is than this, hopefully. Now, coverage can also be an issue. If you're not getting enough coverage, then you probably feel like you need to swipe in and put on more, okay? But you'll see, I swiped under my eye here, and I didn't here. I used my finger. A lot of times it is just application method that is affecting your coverage. Application method and color. So if you're not using a color corrector and you're using just one shade and it's not giving you coverage and you keep building up and it's leading to looking cakey, that just means you have a color too light or not meant for color correcting or not good at color correcting that issue you're trying to color correct, okay? So over here I swiped, but I literally have no coverage under my eyes because I was swiping. And swiping leads to kind of just pulling it over the skin, but not really building up color. So I always recommend the very first step should be to buff on to get a thin layer. Then you can go in and you can build up coverage anywhere you need it, okay? So even if I go in with a brush and my same color corrector, I can press on anywhere I need more coverage. It's all in the tool I use and the method. Okay, so same thing goes over here. I can just still build up that coverage. Okay, so a lot of times people come to me and they're like, oh, I'm still looking too dark or too warm. So this side will look probably way too dark if you could really compare it to my neck in comparison to this shade. Now, so far I just have my color corrector on, not my main shade, which always builds up my coverage and gets me to stay matching on this side, okay? But method of getting it on the brush, your method of using the brush, what brush you're using can really make a huge difference on over application, okay? So switch out your brush, make sure you're tapping in, no swiping. Okay, I'll show you how to fix this side. I'm still going to finish my foundation part first. Okay, so I'm going back to the same brush, okay? And again, I don't have a whole lot of main shade left. That's plenty, okay? So on this side, how should we do it? Okay, first I'm gonna show you the good side. Sticking with this brush, I'm just gently tapping in, trying to tap in a spot where I have color. And then I'm just going to press on my main shade. Okay, the key is pressing, not buffing this time. If we were to buff, guess what? We're gonna move all that coverage. And we're slowly building up coverage while toning down that warmth. Okay, I'm going to tone down the eye. Okay, under the eye, you can also use a more detailed brush. I also build up coverage under my eye. I feel like I get far better coverage and my brightener will sit better if it's just brought down one more shade with my main. You see how much more coverage that gave me just by tapping on? Okay, and just tap on to build up coverage anywhere you need it. Okay, now let's tackle this side. So it's probably really hard to tell because I am very close to my color corrector shade, but it's too dark for me. Okay, so for the over application and feeling too dark and warm, first thing I would recommend for either of those is the Perfector. Could you guys guess? This is the only way you can remove excess with this makeup. There is no other way. You can't blend it away once the product is on your face. Yes, you can contour, you can blend away a lot easier, but when it comes to highlight, you really truly can't blend it away. It's got to go somewhere. This will actually pull off excess product, kind of press it into the skin, let it sit better on the skin, all of those things. But the key is preparing the Perfector properly. And I feel like a lot of people, that is their number one issue, is they'll tell me they're using the Perfector, but then it's pulling off all of their coverage, okay? If it's pulling off all your coverage, how are you preparing it? Okay, so what I did is I ran it underwater, and I didn't just do this under the running faucet. I am squeezing it, releasing it, letting it fully absorb water, fully squeezing it out again, fully letting it absorb again. And I do that probably 5 to 6 times, fully absorbing. That way I know the center of it got just as absorbed as the outside, okay? And if you don't do this, it's not going to feel the same, okay? So after I do that, I squeeze it out, and I literally squeeze it as hard as I can, and I shake it out until I can't physically get another drop of water out of it. Because if there's still any water that can be shook out, it's gonna be too damp. And that is when you take it to your face and it's pulling off your makeup in patches, okay? And it's suddenly affecting your entire coverage, and you're having to go back in with more highlight, okay? So lastly, I get an absorbent towel. And I've also had clients who are using paper towels, something like that. And guess what? It doesn't work the same. Get something absorbent. These are flour sack towels that I literally think I bought at the dollar store, and I dyed them like back in my craft days with Indigo. But now they're my makeup towels. All right. Because they're the most absorbent towels I own in my house. And literally my bathroom hand towels do not work properly compared to these. I'm telling you, the towel makes the difference. These literally sit next to my makeup because they work the best. And I will squeeze it out in these several times. I'm talking not just once, at least 2 to 3 times. Then I let it sit. While I'm doing my makeup, I let it sit and start air drying. Now, if you are the type that really puts your makeup on fast and your Perfector is still too damp by the time you're ready to do your makeup, you need to take that into account. I've also had people who've had that issue, okay? So either you need to prepare it maybe before you put your sunscreen on and let it soak in, or you need to dry it even, more times, squeeze it out in your towel than I do. Figure out what works for you, but I'm telling you, when this is prepared perfectly, it will never pull off your makeup in patches. And if you're using a Perfector dry or spraying your Stay Spray on it and directly going to your face, that is a surefire way. I know a lot of artists do that. It does not work for me any way, shape, or form. Unless you are applying your makeup a lot heavier to where you can afford to pull off more. Does that make sense? Because the way I teach how to apply it, we're doing very small amounts, very thin layers. We can't afford to pull off patches of it, like thick parts of it. Does that make sense? We don't have it on thick over here. Now over here, I probably could because I already have too much on my face, I can tell, and I haven't even put my main shade on yet. If you're using your Perfector dry, it might kind of help press it into the skin slightly, but it's not going to remove excess. And the magic is when it's damp. And I'm telling you, the other sponges on the market also don't work the same way. I have a lot of client testimonies that could tell you it doesn't. And I don't know why. I think it's because those are designed, they're denser, they're designed to apply liquid foundation. They're not designed to remove creams, right? Okay, so I'll get off my Perfector soapbox. You guys know I can't live without this guy. So first thing I'm gonna do to remove excess is I'm gonna start pouncing, okay? We don't swipe this ever. We're just going to pounce and we're gonna rotate it as we're using it. You'll feel that it just feels cold to your face. And as soon as that doesn't feel very cold anymore, I rotate it to a new spot that also feels cold, because that is telling me like your skin will warm this up really fast, and it kind of shows you, tells you, okay, you can tell my skin is already starting to shine through. Okay, first thing I do is if I know I've applied too much is I'm going to remove some excess. Now you can do it in between each step. So if you are brand new to applying Seint and you don't know how much color corrector to apply and you put it on and you're like, I look like an Oompa Loompa, go ahead and use that Perfector, okay? Go to the next step, then you can use it again. I know how much to apply now, so I do it after all my highlights are on and my contours on. Then I perfect one time. But it can take a little bit of trial and error and practice before you get to the step where you can just do it one and done. So try it in between layers if you are having issues with creasing, over application, tackiness. That will solve your issue. Okay, so now I've kind of toned that down. It already looks better, but I'm going to use that main shade that is meant to tone down the warmth. Okay, I'm not gonna swipe this on because again, I've already put my color corrector down. I'm gonna use the same brush, okay? And so to fix this, I'm really going to press on that main shade to tone it down. Now my main shade is neutral and my color corrector is warm. It's the undertones of that corrector that make it so good for coverage of my issues. But then this will keep me matching. Can you tell how much better I'm matching already? It's also building up coverage. So even though I really swiped and went heavy-handed over here, I'm more or less already matching a whole lot better, but I can still do better on this side. So one thing I have questions a lot about is if they're using a color corrector, they're still feeling like they're not getting enough coverage in certain areas. Once you have your main shade on, you can still go back in with more. So my dark spot is still shining through. There's nothing that says I can't tap into my corrector again and slowly build up that coverage in thin layers. Sometimes I will perfect my full face and then go back in with even more just on the areas I need, okay? You don't want your full face looking super heavy, but there's nothing wrong with going in for more coverage just where you need it, okay? I can tell since I hadn't built up coverage here that I needed more coverage. Okay, so this step, it is key to press on. Pressing on builds up coverage. Buffing on gives you that really thin layer. And if this is too heavy for you and you are really wanting that most skin-like finish, use this brush for all of it, okay? You'll do a light color corrector and then you'll have to almost kind of press and feather your main shade over it to tone down where you need it. But this brush, the blend brush, will keep it looking like skin more so than any other brush we have. Okay, I'm gonna go back to how to fix the rest of that at the very end, the whole tacky, still too dark. Next, let's go to contour. You guys know me, I love to use my highlights, then I contour. You can contour first. I would say one issue that I see a lot of is people saying that they're not getting the coverage they want in their contour, or it's making their hyperpigmentation look worse, or they're looking really orange or red when applying their contour. And that can be a variety of things. Okay, so first of all, look at your face. If you have hyperpigmentation or redness in this area, if you want more coverage in this area, any of those things, you want to put your highlight down first. Okay, first of all, if you have redness, you truly need to match that redness with the color corrector, then apply your main shade to tone down that redness, or no matter the shade of contour you put over it, it's going to increase the look of warmth in that area because your face naturally has warmth, like mine. I use the coolest contour and it still pulls slightly warm even after color correcting. But color correcting, building up that coverage, because our contours also give coverage, is the only way that you're going to kind of get a less red effect. It's going to give you the most cool, natural looking shadow is if you color correct, then apply your main shade. Same goes with hyperpigmentation. I have an entire video for troubleshooting contour, and I show you how to apply it if you've got dark spots in there. So if you have to color correct, then apply, color correct, then apply your main shade, then apply your contour. You have to apply your contour in a certain way so that you're not rubbing off all that color corrector when you blend your contour. Okay. If you don't have any of those issues and you're just applying your contour, say, directly to your skin and not getting enough coverage, apply your highlight under it. So our highlights give coverage, our contours give coverage, but the highlights give the most coverage. So if you want more coverage in that area, just apply both and you're gonna get double the amount of coverage. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if you've been color matched to a contour and it just looks orange or red on your skin and you've tried color correcting and it's still pulling super warm, it might be because you have a warmer contour. So let's see, swatch a few for you. This is Olive. When I first started wearing this makeup, this is the color I wore every day. And I still love it. But now that I wear a cool contour, this looks so warm on me, okay? It's considered neutral. Stone is considered warm, okay? I will be honest, I don't recommend stone or olive if you have any redness in your cheek area. It's going to pull warm no matter what. If you like a really warm look and you want to forego bronzer and use something that just looks warm, then that's a personal preference. But these will pull warm if you have redness, okay? I would say the most warm I would recommend sorry if you can hear my dog snoring, would be henna. Okay, you can tell it's cooler. It's got more of a green olivey undertone, even though it's not called olive. It probably should have been. Okay, this is probably as warm as I would recommend if you have any redness on the cheeks or forehead, but it can still pull warm on skin tones, all right? So if you're using any of these and pulling warm, you need to stick with a cool contour if you're wanting a cooler look. Next would be Ash. You can see how much more gray tone that is. And then we have Astoria, which is darker and still cool. Last but not least is Indigo. Okay, so technically olive, nope, that's not olive. This is olive. Olive, my dog keeps snoring, and indigo are neutral, but can you see how warm those pull? Okay, they will pull warm on anyone's skin tone. So I'm gonna show you guys on this side a bunch of contour issues we can fix, because I feel like contour is one of those things that people struggle with the most. Okay, so I'm gonna pick up olive, okay? And I'm just going to use my finger. Now, olive is one of the driest of all of our contours, so know that. You might have to kind of warm it up with your finger a little or apply a little bit more. Getting it on the brush is a little bit different. So I'm gonna go, and I'm just gonna kind of swipe it on, and I'm gonna go real haphazard because I see people do this all the time. Okay, there's olive. Pick up my Ride or Die contouring brush to blend this out, and I'm going to talk about a few issues that you might have. So this color is very warm on me. When you're blending it out, if it pulls too warm, I'm going to show you how to fix that. Okay, so there's a few different issues when it comes to color. If it's too warm, it can pull orange or red. If it's too cool, usually it's hard to blend, or it looks dirty on the skin. Okay. If it's patchy, usually that's an issue of skin texture. Not always. Sometimes hard to blend can be patchy and it's too cool. But a lot of times, because one of the hardest things to blend out, and it's not cool at all, is indigo, this one, okay? And that's just because it's so much darker that it really plays a big part in your skin texture. And back here seems to be, I don't know if it's because we missed that area of our face or what, but back here, I have the issue with indigo all the time. If I haven't just exfoliated, sometimes it looks patchy on me and I'll have to blend in another color to get it to blend out. So if you're dealing with patchiness, when's the last time you exfoliated? Okay, make sure you shave your face. I've got videos on that. If you think I'm crazy, it's amazing. And Cure. Cure is my Ride or Die, always, every 3 days, like clockwork, my favorite exfoliator. And I never have issues with it looking patchy there, as long as I have exfoliated within the last 3 days. All right, so if you're having issues with blending, you can blend in another color. So this is why it's kind of nice to have multiple contours, either to switch it up on the daily or kind of fix, or you can mix. So my two favorite contours on the daily is I always use Astoria and Indigo. So sometimes you might be using a color on your cheeks and it shows up fine, but on your forehead, it doesn't show up the same way. And so you might need something darker. I love to use Indigo on my forehead, Astoria on my cheek. Sometimes I mix the two. Sometimes I'll, make my contour a little bit more dramatic by placement of the two colors. I've shown that. I think I just showed that in my Christmas Get Ready With Me. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of alter the colors, but one of my favorite ways is to blend, add the opposite tone if I'm having that issue. So if I'm using indigo on my cheeks and it won't blend out, I will apply Astoria right on top of it, blend it in with it, and suddenly it blends in like a dream. Same thing goes for this. So this one is warm. So if it's not blending well, or if it just pulls orange or red, I'm gonna add in my cool toned contour. You guys, guess what mistake I'm going to be fixing over here? Let's start blending. So first thing we wanna do is never blend down, and I don't wanna go side to side because that's just going to kind of move anything I placed underneath it. It's also going to make my redness through here show up more because I'm moving that color corrector I already placed. So just start by kind of pressing along that line and then flicking upwards. Okay, now I made the mistake of going in way too far. Like I always say, you want to kind of apply along this imaginary line. Can you tell I went a little bit too low? Okay, and you want to stop around the corner of the eye. I went too far in. Okay, so let's fix that. First, we're gonna blend out our contour. We're not gonna do this and blend it all away. If you finish your contour and you say you can't see it, it's one of three issues. You're either blending it all out, it's too light for you. So if I've color matched you, that's rarely ever a case, because I do recommend contour based on skin tone. I'm not going to give you something that's you're not going to be able to see on your skin. But a lot of it has to do with you not getting enough on your brush or you blending it all away, okay? So I'll show you over here what I mean by that. But over here, we're just going to kind of press. Now this color is actually pretty light for me. On my skin tone, I wouldn't actually recommend starting with this kind of color, but I can wear them all. I can't really wear walnut or aspen. They look a little bit paler. They don't really look like a natural shadow, but I can wear the rest, okay? If that tells you anything. Okay, so I'm slowly kind of blending, and then you can see I've gotten way too far in here and down low. Grab that highlight brush. There are no mistakes with this makeup. Simply pull it back up. And keep blending. This contours actually blend out so easily. It can be harder not to blend it all away than to apply too much. Okay, because if you apply too much, you can simply just press until it's the way you like. Okay, I like this area to just kind of gradually fade in, okay, because we want the darkest part of the shadow to be naturally where it would be the darkest, and then fade as it gets here. We don't want mustaches. But look at that. You can't tell I had anything there. Now, if you really want to like carve out, you can easily use highlight even. If you feel like you got too low still. So not bad. I feel like it is a little bit too light for me because I do like a more defined contour now. So I'm gonna let my face kind of simmer down since I know touching it turns my skin red. And I'm gonna show you what I recommend on the other side. Okay, so I'm gonna go with my daily go-to Astoria. So for a shade difference, if you can kind of see the difference between the two. Okay, so this is Olive and this is Astoria. So getting it on the brush, I feel like if you can master this, you are golden. All of our contours are drier. They're not the same consistency of our highlights. They're designed that way so that they stay put all day where you put them and they're not gonna move around on your face. Okay, so get your brush at an angle and simply tap in with some pressure, okay? Now I can see that color on my brush. I've got a nice even distribution of it on my brush, and that's a key for me not having to blend like this because it's going to apply it evenly to where I'm not gonna have patchiness. So the patchiness could be you need to exfoliate because it's sticking to certain parts of your skin more so than others, or it could be how you're loading your brush, and if you're getting more in certain parts than others, that's the way it looks like on your face, and it's gonna be a lot harder to blend out that way. So I'm gonna go up all the way up to my ear. I'm gonna follow that imaginary line, stopping about here, and I'm just gonna press. And if I can get my hair out of it. Okay, do you see that? Now I'm just gonna simply move upwards on my face. So I blur out that line. So if I had any hyperpigmentation there, I only pressed, I didn't move any of that color corrector around. So I can get a nice soft contour. If it's still too much for you, you can easily, again, use that highlight brush which is why it's so nice to have more than one brush, because this is your magic eraser. It's already got a little bit of highlight on. I didn't put any extra highlight. I'm simply using the magic of this brush, or I mean any brush that you can kind of press is gonna help. A brush like this can kind of help feather, but it's not going to blur those lines as much. So now that my skin is kind of toned down a little bit, can you see how much more warm this side looks comparison to this side? And that's because I used a warm contour and this one's more cool. I prefer to add my warmth with my blush and my flush of color and not my contour. And that way I can kind of choose whether I want warmth or not by adding a bronzer. I personally feel like using a warm contour plus a bronzer can sometimes make me look too warm, too orange. And I'm already a self-tanner. I don't need that much extra warmth. So again, it's personal preference depending on the look you like. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of fix that a little bit by just adding a touch of Astoria, okay? If you can't see a color, add a little bit darker of a color. If it's too warm, add a little bit of a cooler contour. So if you're using olive, you could use ash. If you're wanting it darker, like me, I used olive, I'm gonna use Astoria. If you use something like ash or henna, and it is making you look dirty, almost kind of dead looking, I don't know how else to describe it, but then you need a warmer contour. You need to try the next warmer shade. So one warmer than ash, where'd it go? One warmer than ash is henna, one warmer than henna is olive, stone. So stone, olive, henna, ash, then it goes to Astoria and Indigo. And these two are kind of like in their own category. These are all about the same depth, darkness. Astoria is darker. It's kind of right in the middle between the two, but cool. And Indigo is the darkest until you get into the darkest of skin tones. But it is warm. So this is why I mix these two a lot, because this one's a little bit too warm. This one's a little bit too cool. Sometimes I like to mix them, or not light or not dark enough. I wish we had a color in between. Hint, hint. Seint, if you're listening, I would love that. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and add a touch more depth, touch more shadow. And I feel like the cooler contours, if you can get away with it, do look the most natural because they give that natural shadow. Okay, so if you go too low, clean it up, go too far in, blend it, just press it out. Okay, now I feel like I've got more, I feel like I got more contour over here now. I'm gonna even them up. Just gonna add a little bit of olive here because I don't think I'm gonna be able to stand it today if my contours don't match. Okay, and then walk away, step back. Sometimes you just gotta step back and don't blend anymore. All right, forehead. So like I said before, you can mix, you can use a darker one if you can't see it here, the same one here, use a darker one. So I'll show you guys what olive looks like on me on the forehead. So I can see it, just kind of, obviously my skin turns red, but it fades away naturally. Okay, so I'm gonna go Astoria. Blend down. I say the biggest mistake I see on the forehead is this. I don't know if I can do it. It's really hard for me. Can you tell? Not blending. So cheeks and foreheads are very different. We want definition along our cheekbone because it pushes that up. It really defines our cheekbones and makes our face look more chiseled. But there is no bone here that we want chiseled, correct? The only reason we contour our forehead is to either frame our face, kind of just give a little bit of shape to our face, or actually change the look of your forehead by creating a shadow. So we can actually make your forehead look shorter or more narrow based on where we place the contour. But we don't want definition on our forehead, okay? Always blend down and up, okay? It should be very subtle. You should never see a line on the forehead. I think every artist has a pet peeve, and that might be mine. So no forehead lines. Cheekbone lines are fine. I love a defined contour on the cheek, but not on the forehead. Okay, and the white, we don't want to see our white scalp either. So that's why we blend into the hair down. So it should be a natural gradation. Is that a word? Gradation. Just kind of going from light to dark. So we always kind of brighten right here. And then the shadow should just get kind of naturally darker. So we naturally frame out our face. You can go more dramatic if you're really wanting to shorten your forehead or something like that. But we don't want definition anywhere we contour but our cheekbones. The nose you don't want too defined. You don't want to be able to see a clear line of nose contour or on the side of our face for our jaw, anything like that, okay? So let's go ahead and finish out contouring. I'm gonna go ahead and use a mixture of Indigo and Astoria. So I just kind of tap in to both. I can just go straight down with that because I'm not trying to get it on just part of my brush because I'm not so strategic like I am with my cheek contour. I can't talk. Okay, so we're just going under our jawline. Okay, now you can kind of carve out your jawline, and the key is just blending that. And then I'd say definitely use the Perfector, blur that line because we don't want to look like we have a stripe here on our jaw. But there are techniques. I have a video on that as well. You just want to keep those lines very soft. So soft on the forehead, soft on the jawline. Okay, so now we've kind of blended that down. Okay, let's do a quick nose contour just because I want to talk about one thing. Okay, one thing I see, two things I see with nose contours. So noses naturally are the part of our face that can pull the most red, even if you don't have a lot of redness. I have a lot of clients that don't say redness is a problem, but their nose is the most red part of their face. You might not even realize it. And it's just the way we're made, right? And a lot of us have broken capillaries, that kind of stuff on the sides of our nose. Our noses can pull more red. So if your cheekbones are fine with that warm contour, your nose may not be. So that is the reason why our founder actually made Shadow. Shadow is a contour designed only for noses. It's not supposed to be used on the face. Because what did I say happens if you use a color too cool? It won't blend, okay? It makes you look dead. We don't want that. Shadow is designed only for noses because it is the most gray, okay? So if you're using this on your full face, I urge you to get a new color. I swear it has a different consistency. I don't feel like it works in the same way as the others. So I'm going to show you what shadow looks like on the nose. And I'm just going to do a quick nose contour using the side of the detail brush. Okay, so when we nose contour, we really want to keep the thinnest stripes possible, okay? You want it to go right where your nose starts curving downward is where that line should be. So one of the biggest issues I see is people, and I'm not saying like anyone I know, I'm saying like graphics on Pinterest, where they darken the entire side of the nose. All of it. Okay. Key with the nose contour is keeping the side of your nose lighter, okay? The center stripe and the side should be light. So when you use your brightener, you should go all the way up to that stripe. Now, I recommend keeping it out of this area, which tends to increase the look of texture, and just go all the way up to that stripe with your brightener. Okay, and then also in the center. And truly the highlight does more for the look of your nose contour than the contour can. Okay, so can you kind of see what happens? So the purpose of a nose contour is to actually make your nose appear thinner. It's truly doesn't change. You can use it. It can be a little complicated to change the shape of your nose. But the main easiest thing to do with a nose contour is to thin the look of your nose. By placing darkness on the side, what does that do? Okay, it actually makes your nose look wider. Do you see how wide my nose looks like on this side? Hopefully you guys can see. Okay, so we're not gonna do that. I'm going to try to fix it real quick. Okay, first I'm going to color correct. Main shade. Okay, now I'm going to go back in and really kind of draw on that precise line. Now this is why you see sometimes using a really precise brush, because you really want that thin stripe. So to fix it, just brighten there. Can you tell that suddenly my nose is getting thinner and not wider now? And honestly, the closer together you can get these two stripes, the thinner your nose will look. My issue is these areas right here. And you would think almost like darkness would make it recede, because that's what we think of. But it truly will make your nose, it just makes this look wider than when you just brighten this area. So I feel like nose contour can be a little bit difficult to understand why we do what we do, because I feel like it's opposite. Maybe it's just me. Okay, so I'm brightening. Okay, I am pressing that on. Building up coverage where I have hyperpigmentation around my eyes. I'm not going all the way up to my lash line because I have issues there. Okay. Forehead. Okay, I already did that stripe. I might have messed it up. The thinner you can get that highlight stripe, again, the thinner your nose will look. Okay, so back to fixing too dark, too warm. The other way to fix it, pressing on a brightener along your jaw. So when I'm choosing shades for a color match, usually the brightener shade is based on your undertones of your skin. And I do that because I know it's gonna lay the best way on your skin if it matches your natural undertones. If you try to go one way or the other, a lot of times it can pull really chalky on the skin. It sits on top of the skin, makes you look drier, emphasizes pores, all of those things. Now, with our makeup, obviously, I've said a million times, the lighter you go with your brightener, the more it will naturally emphasize skin's texture. And that's because you're getting farther and farther away from your main shade, which is what will sit best. And when you try to go lighter, you have to be a little bit more strategic. You got to keep a light hand. You've got to use that Perfector to kind of press it. But a lot of times I am choosing a color based on the shade of your neck. Because my goal is always to keep you matching. And if you naturally have a darker face than your neck, you have to match the darkest tones in your face first, or your makeup's not gonna last. You're gonna have longevity issues. It's gonna wear off really fast. So once we kind of correct, use your main shade to kind of bring you back as close as we can to matching. Sometimes that brightener shade I'm giving you is to keep you matching, okay? And you have to apply it here to tone down that warmth so you're not getting pulled too dark in comparison to your neck. So there's two ways to do that if you're looking too dark or too warm, and that is applying your brightener shade along your jawline. So I'm gonna just stick with this brush, pounce into my brightener, and I'm just going to press that right there. It's also a really great way to clean up your contour line or define it even more. But look at that. Remember how dark I was in comparison to my neck earlier? Now I'm matching great. So I'm still matching great over here because I never applied way too much on this side to begin with. The other way is good old-fashioned Bella bronzer. Now we do have, look at this, I accidentally stabbed my Bella with my Lashify tool. Actually, it fell out and directly landed in my Bella bronzer. So yeah, that's great. Oh, that's not Bella, that's Heat Wave. It's super soft. Just kidding. That's not even the shade. Multiple bronzer shades now. So if you need a recommendation on which one's best for you, I would say if you are sandy or above, sandy or mango, or you have a lot of like redness in your neck and chest, I would say Heat Wave. It has a lot more of that red, warm undertone. Bella is the most universal. Bella will work for anyone from fair to darker. It's just all in how much you apply, and it's very buildable. And then if you are lighter, then I'd say candlelit or lower. Tan lines is a great option for your neck as well. So I am going to swirl into all three, Bella, Glow Illuminator, and I'm barely gonna dip into my Heat Waves since it's got giant holes in the middle and I can tell it's picking up a lot. And I'm gonna swirl. So again, this just picked up a lot. I'm gonna make sure I swirl it so I don't get too much in any one spot. And that is the easiest way to warm up your neck so it's still matching. And then you can obviously apply it anywhere you want a little bit of extra warmth, which I feel like I don't need much since I use that warmer contour. Okay, so now we're finally to the magic perfector time. We've contoured, we've brightened, all the things. Now is when I like to make sure I really kind of blur out these harsh lines, make sure it's sitting good on the skin, and get rid of that kind of extra brightener that kind of sits on top of the skin. By now, because I've been talking way longer than normal, well, no, let's be real. I've been talking a long time like normal. My Perfector is not as damp, and I've already kind of used it a little bit. So remember, really kind of move it around. I'm gonna really focus on the under eye the most. Okay, so again, this is key if you're sticky, tacky, or if you have creasing. Make sure anywhere you are prone to creasing, you overuse this Perfector. So for me, that's under my eyes and right here in my smile lines. And as long as I've used my Perfector, I never have creasing. Now, I'll be honest, when I am in a hurry and I haven't actually prepared my Perfector, or I'm in the car and I try to do my under eyes like normal, I for sure will have creasing. So if you know your Perfector is not gonna be perfect, use a brush more like this where you can just kind of barely apply right here in this triangle, or you don't have to brighten every time. It's truly a personal preference. Okay, next comes blush, my favorite part. All right, so you guys know me. I love to mix and match my blushes. I love to use the mattes for more pigmentation and then top it with the gloss for that glow. But I know some people, if you are feeling like your cheeks are too tacky, what kind of blush are you using? You guys, we have 3 different formulations, and if you're using more of the glossy type, that's probably why. Your skin might have to get used to it. You might have to get used to it. I know it took me a little bit of time to get used to it as well. I would say my biggest suggestion, if you are, is to use a matte under it so you're not having to apply so much of that glossy shade. Once again, over application. If you're applying a lot of that glossy shade just so you can see the color, you're gonna feel even more sticky and tacky on your cheeks, okay? So try using a matte shade, get that pigment, and then you can use very little of the glossy shade over it just for the glow and for the color you like. Okay, so one of the things I see a lot of is people will use their finger and they'll just kind of dot their blush on. Okay, and then the only way to blend this out is to kind of swirl. Okay, now while this may work for some people, it will only work for me on this side of my face, because why? I've got hyperpigmentation here. In fact, I probably need to color correct that again since I perfected, and it pulls off a little bit every time. See, much better. Okay, so when you're doing that, if you have used a color corrector at all, you're moving anything you placed under there. You also can't control the amount as much or placement as much, because when you blend, it moves that product around. Okay, so I'm gonna show you what I would do to fix this. First of all, here's the rule for placement of lip and cheek. You wanna go 1 to 2 finger widths away from your nose, and anything inside of that, you wanna make sure you stay out of, okay? You also wanna keep it above the bottom of your nose. And this is for my mature skin lovelies. Okay, so we lift the face. Okay, then if it's patchy at all, or if it's too high, or if it's too bright and you really need to subdue it, just kind of perfect over it. Now our lip and cheeks will kind of die down after about 5 minutes. So with a little bit of trial and error, you'll kind of learn how much to apply. But what I do is I will place it, kind of finish up my face, and then kind of look and be like, okay, do I need more blush? After you've done it a while, you'll know exactly how much of each shade. Some of our formulations or some of our colors are much more sheer than others. So you know you have to apply very little of, say, Ruby, which is one of our most pigmented shades, and a lot more of Sadie, which is one of our most sheer shades. Once it's how I like it, Then again, I will go in with very little of a glossy shade. So I'm going to use Desert Sunset, which is very sheer. I'm just going to kind of tap in, and then I'm going to go and press it on. Okay, so now I have a glow. I still have the same kind of color because Desert Sunset doesn't have a lot of pigmentation to it. So it's going to give me the same look of whatever I used under it. It's very sheer and natural. Okay, so how I would apply it over here if I wasn't doing that blending technique, again, blush brush as always. This is, I think this is Nude. Yes, Nude Lip and Cheek, which is a matte, which is more pigmented. Okay, I'm just tapping in. I smile, go to the outside upper apple of my cheek. That is 1 to 2 finger widths away, and it is above my nose. Okay, if I just kind of tap right there up along the contour line, because we don't want a gap in between these two, you won't have to do any fixing, right? You can just kind of tap around to kind of blur the edges, and you don't have to fix anything. You guys know me, I'm all about efficiency. If I can do something really quick and easy, I don't have to go back and fix it. Okay, now you'll notice that is a little bit lighter than the first time because I tapped in with my fingers that time. I didn't control the color. You can't control the amount as much with your finger as you can with the brush, okay? So now I can tap in and apply more and build up the color until it's the depth I want, okay? Then how I like it, I can go back in and add that glow. By looking, I still have too much right here. It's much easier to apply it and avoid it than to fix it. At least it's a time saver. But there are no mistakes with creams, okay? Until you set it in place, you are fine. Okay, so let's talk setting. Before I illuminate, let's talk about finish. Last way to kind of fix over application, feeling sticky or tacky, which now I feel a little bit right here just because I did layer more on this side. This side feels like my skin, like literally my skin. This side I can tell I've got more product on. So your skin, when you're first learning 3D foundation, it's gonna go through an adjustment phase. So if you don't know, our creams are occlusive, which what that means is that it actually sits on top of the skin. It prevents TEWL. Does anybody know what that is? Transepidermal water loss, which is the term for when you're naturally just your skin will lose water throughout the day. Okay, our skin is very permeable. That's what happens. It loses water. But if you have something on top of it that is an occlusive agent, there's a lot of skincare out there that does the same thing. Our creams are occlusive, meaning it holds in all of the water you're used to losing in your skin all day long, which is why a lot of people who switch to this makeup are like, my skin is so soft and hydrated and moisturized all the time and glowing. It's because you're not losing a bunch of water and your skin is staying hydrated. What that also means is that if skin is not used to it, you kind of go through this phase where you feel a little bit more hydrated than normal, okay? So my biggest adjustment for most of my clients is those that are really oily. It will improve your skin over time, I promise, but it can take a little bit longer for your skin to go through the adjustment period than my normal skin. So what's that mean? You might like a powder until you get through that adjustment period. So your skin might feel a little bit tackier, moisturized for anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks, depending on your skin type. So one way to combat that, or to combat over application, if you happen to just over apply and you're like, I feel a little sticky and you can't stand it, use a loose powder, okay? Loose powder, powder puff, kind of just press it on, especially around our jawline where we kind of touch the most. If you have a glowy blush on and you put a powder over it, it will take away that glow factor. So just know that. But you might want to I always say powder your highlight areas, and that's the part of the face where we naturally highlight, meaning where do you accent brighten? Okay, so along the jawline, chin, nose, under the eyes, center of the forehead. The rest of where we contoured, if you put a powder there, it's gonna kind of tone down your contour, so know that. You can use a powder bronzer, something like NARS Laguna is really good to kind of set those areas, but this is a cream makeup. It won't set unless you set it with something, setting spray or powder. And I do find that powder sets it far better than an actual setting spray will, but it depends on the finish you want. So here are your options. If you have normal skin or maybe mature skin and you want your skin to glow and have a dewy look, okay? If you need to set any areas with a powder, do that first. So here's what I do. This is for me. I'm normal skin. I'm also mature skin, but I know my face and I will crease under my eyes if I don't set it. So I grab my powder brush. I'm going to use very little, okay? The key with under eyes is using the smallest amount of a finely milled powder as possible so it doesn't make you look older. I'm touching our vanilla dust and I'm going right under the eye and tapping it on. And then I repeat, other side. Anywhere else you want to have a little bit more longevity or block any shine or avoid creasing, press that on anywhere else. And I'm going to do my lids as well because I haven't done eyeshadow yet. So I got a nice base. And there you go. Okay. Now, I have mature skin. I want my skin to glow. Can you tell? I am going to shake up my setting spray and I'm going to use our Seint setting spray. And I'm going to generously spray my face. Now, be warned, our setting spray has a more forceful mister and it's designed that way so you don't have to spray it 10 times. You can only spray it like 2 to 3, unlike other setting sprays on the market. So just a heads up, close your eyes and hold your breath. Okay, now don't touch your face and let that dry. So what this is gonna do is this is going to give me a dewy look. I've already set those areas that I want set and now my whole face is going to be dewy and that is gonna kind of take away that powdery finish of anywhere I put it. Okay, your other option, if you like both a dewy look and a matte look just on different areas of your face, then I would say spray first after you've applied all of the creams, then go in with your powder anywhere you want matte. So whether that is just everywhere T-zone, everywhere in the center, along the jawline, maybe where you touch your face more. That way, those areas will be powdered last, give you the most longevity, and the other areas will be that glowy look. Okay, third option, and this is for if you're oily or issues with feeling sticky or tacky, or you like more full coverage, or you like a matte look, or having longevity issues, I would say try this way, and that is use a setting spray all over. If you're oily, I'd actually recommend Urban Decay De-Slick instead of ours. Ours is more of a dewy finish. De-Slick is made for oily skin girls. Okay, you might even try Mattifying Primer as your first step before your makeup. It's the only time I recommend a primer. This makeup is not designed for a primer, but you don't need one. But if you really need to keep oil at bay for as long as possible, you can try one of those. Then I would say use that powder puff, use a loose powder, because this is gonna give you the longest like oil absorbing properties and it's gonna last the longest. Press this on all over, okay? It's gonna leave you with a matte finish and you're gonna have it locked and loaded. So hopefully that makes sense. It's also going to help as your skin is going through that adjustment phase. You're not gonna feel tacky if you put a little bit of powder on over it. I would say vanilla dust is your best option for under the eyes or for touching up throughout the day. If you're one of those that likes the loose powder, you can keep the vanilla dust for touching up. You can even grab something like this roller. Have you guys seen these? And it's literally like a volcanic stone, and you just roll it over your face and it absorbs oil, and then you can like rinse it off later. I've heard those are a game changer for a lot of people. So that is something else you can use during the day, and then put on a little bit more vanilla dust and you should be golden. Okay, so I always say set your face or powder first, and then you can end with illuminator. Okay, I'm just gonna use the Perfector, and this is actually a perfume, but my number 3. Swipe in generously with our creams, and then you can just tap it right on that upper cheekbone. So it should be contour, blush, illuminator. One thing I don't recommend is really using your fingers. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it's very easy to get fingerprints. Maybe it won't bother. It bothers me to see fingerprints on my face. So the Perfector is the easiest way to apply and blend at the same time and not leave fingerprints. I feel like it shows up better with the Perfector than the fingers. Anyway, I'm gonna finish my face real fast. All right, friends, that is all for my fixing application mistakes video. Can you tell I like air quotes? Everything from over application, placement, blending, contour, finish, all of the things, staying matching. Hopefully that was helpful in kind of learning do's and don'ts, how to fix it, how to avoid it. If there's anything I didn't cover, I'm sure it's probably in my more basic troubleshooting video, or drop it in the comments below and I can help you out. If you think you might have a color issue with your 3D foundation, just holler at me. My color match questionnaire is in the link in the drop box below the video. Happy to help you out so you love your makeup too. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Love you.